Hi, my name is Jason Brier, and today I'll be talking about working for social change through software design. So my freshman year, I was in this building, and I was in my first database management class, and I was walking up those stairs looking for a place to study, and for me, that meant finding somewhere quiet, but it ended up being walking into the CELD office, which is Civic Engagement and Leadership Development, and meeting Mel Groover, who just talked to you for a little while, and she kind of exposed me to a lot of really cool opportunities here at Purdue. The first I'll talk about is the EMV Leadership Retreat, which is really all about like redefining leadership, unpacking like some of your beliefs that you brought to college, and like making you a member of this like service and critical thinking society here at Purdue, where we can start working through service. She also invited me and encouraged me to take part in a spring break service trip my sophomore year, where I got to travel to Denver, and I got to learn a lot about myself, as well as learn about homeless and marginalized communities there. I think for me, it was a really big part of realizing that my identity was a lot more than where I came from or what I knew when I came to school. And the next year, I worked as the trip leader for the Denver trip, and I was in charge of like 6 other people and kind of facilitating their service learning and understanding once again, some of the same ideas around like unpacking your privilege and thinking about how we can do service. And I had this big idea. I said, hey, how can I bring these lessons about social change and justice into what I work on in my everyday life? And for me, that means how can I use research on users and like software development and design to create systems that maybe break traditional power structures, and I'll describe a little bit more about like the work that I do. So I'm a UX researcher and designer, and what that means is that I fight for user needs, but I also pay attention to business goals and technology, and it means that I have a lot of influence over the products that get shipped every day and the changes that are made to those products. So if there were to be a continuum from humans to technology, I would say that I definitely sit somewhere in that area where I'm focusing on both how can we spec this out to be a useful product that's like creating innovation, but also how can we create something that helps people meet their goals. And I'll describe in just a minute some of the things that I've built to maybe bring social action about. But I think this is really important to me because we live in a world now where we're looking through our screens and living through our devices in more ways than we have ever before. And since it's such an impactful and like overwhelmingly like important part of our lives, it's really like critical that we are mindful about the systems that we're designing and how they impact other people. So it's more about making things easier to use, as easy as a child could use it. And it's also about thinking, how could we create experiences that are critical or making people change their thoughts on reality. So it's more about helping people be successful. It's also about helping people feel like they are being served and that they're important and that the technology isn't just frustrating for them or helpful for them, but it is something that is critical to their lifeblood. And so one of the projects I'm working on right now is with a IBM-funded startup in Canada called Digital DACL, and they build software for dementia caregivers, and informal ones at that, people that are caring for their loved ones at home. And in a lot of cases, these are people that haven't been supported traditionally through like different services or tools, and they've been kind of learning on their own. The way this manifests itself is in a tracking device and in a mobile application for the iPhone, where if their loved one is to be in danger of falling within their home, or if they were to wander off, the artificial intelligence engine that's running in the background with this tracking information can help them find them and potentially save their lives. This last summer, I was an intern at a startup called Citybase in Chicago, and they're a company that does e-government software for 35 of the United States' largest cities, which means, in fact, that they handle payments for hundreds of thousands, millions of people every day. And I was working on their in-person channel. They were very successful on web and mobile, and this in-person channel was seeing really large challenges, especially in the payment offices that they were placed that had the highest traffic. So the problem was that when people were coming to the offices, they weren't like able to complete their tasks, and in other cases they were maybe afraid to approach the kiosks in the first place. So my job was to go in, do research, and understand where are the challenges in this interface, and where do people drop out of the system or fail or feel like they've failed. So over just 4 hours of research in one of the payment offices, over the 70 hours that I spent doing research, we saw that only 16 out of 215 people were able to successfully complete transactions. And we heard quotes like this: "I don't know how to do that shit," in like a really like frustrated way, coming from people saying, "This software is not built for me. It's not built for me to understand it, and I would rather wait in a line that is 2 hours long to see a cashier than I would to use the system, which I think is really disrespectful and not built for my needs." And so we went through and we were really thorough about like highlighting where the system had problems. We found that there were a lot of areas that just had really poor contrast ratios or poor messaging, even lacks of functionality where links would lead to empty pages. And so we worked really hard to do a lot of iterative design and a lot of different sketching. And through this work, we also were very participatory. We were bringing these sketches into Dunkin' Donuts in Southside Chicago and asking people to try and use this system. And through that, we were able to come to a cleaner, more appropriate interface that brought the amount of people that were able to successfully complete transactions up to 80% from the 20% it was at the beginning of the summer. And so what this means is that we were trying to match the system's language with the language of the people trying to use it. And really what this means to me is that I figured out a way to democratize technology and make it useful for more people. And I think that the way that I've taken this civic service knowledge and applied it to myself is something anyone could do.